Now, she's a baroness with 11 Paralympic gold medals to her name. But Tanni Grey-Thompson has revealed that she was forced to throw her wheelchair from a train and crawl down to the platform after assistance she had booked didn't turn up. It's just one incident, but it's symptomatic of the sorts of problems disabled people encounter on Britain's public transport system. In the first of a series of special reports looking at No-Go Britain, Katie Razzall looks at a growing campaign from disabled passengers who say they're tired of being treated as second-class citizens.
To you, they may be the best way of getting around. To Britain's 10 million disabled people, buses and trains can be a nightmare, and they've been telling us why. This is how Baroness Tanni Grey-Thompson describes what public transport is like if you're disabled.
I think as a disabled person travelling, you always have an element of fear or just feeling very uncomfortable, of panic, of wondering whether you're going to get off.
Channel 4 News has been travelling round the country talking to disabled people about their experiences. We've heard horror stories from across Britain. Our first stop was Darlington. The law says disabled people shouldn't be discriminated against when it comes to transport. In other words, they should be able to get on buses and trains like everyone else. Trainee teaching assistant Anthony Wilson says that's not his experience of the local bus company Arriva.
Arriva, our local bus company, is just getting worse and worse. I actually go to college in Durham and I have to leave an hour and a half early in case I can't get one bus. I can get the next and the next and so on. I'm fuming because I want my independence. I want to be able to go out and work, but I can't go out and find a job because I have to travel.
We followed Anthony as he tried to get home. When his bus arrived, he was in for a shock. The driver told him he couldn't get on.
Does this happen often?
All the time when I come to Darlington, all the time. That's why I don't come to Darlington.
What are they saying?
It's saying that the ramp doesn't come down because it's been screwed down, but now they're not allowed to have me on the bus at all. No, you've tried your best, but I want to complain to Arriva.
The bus driver tells Anthony the company is sending a replacement bus for all the passengers.
Today they are going to swap the buses, but this normally doesn't happen. It's the first time it's ever happened to me.
Why is it happening, do you think?
I think it's because you are generally here.
The cameras are on?
Yeah, cameras are on.
Arriva told Channel 4 News they'd been aware of the fault at the time and had booked repairs, but the bus was functional apart from that. He's now been in the cold for an hour. Finally, a bus Anthony Wilson can board pulls up. He's on his way home. But he's not the only angry passenger in Darlington.
Disabled people say they're fed up of being treated like second-class citizens and they're taking on their local bus company, telling Arriva, "We'll see you in court."
There isn't anywhere.
Anthony's one of 16 people who are suing Arriva, some of them here meeting up with their lawyer, Chris Fry.
Arriva are defending. They're defending it on a number of levels. A lot of it is just on the law.
All here have stories about their experiences of inaccessible buses, ramps that don't work, bus drivers who refuse to let them board. He tells them they're making legal history.
I don't know if Darlington's particularly bad or if people have reached breaking point faster here. Certainly the case here has led to responses from charities and individuals all around the country. I think perhaps the most unusual thing about this is you have a group of people that are prepared to take the fight on now, and where there is no precedent formally, it's a bold step to take.
Arriva told Channel 4 News the law requires all single-deckers to be wheelchair accessible by 2015. They've invested £23 million, they say, and are well ahead of schedule.
While there are times where we cannot guarantee every single bus will be wheelchair accessible, we do not believe these examples are representative of the experience of the vast majority of wheelchair users or other people with reduced mobility who use our services.
So what about train travel? For most of us, it can be a last-minute decision. But if you need help getting on and off, you have to book assistance a day in advance. Even then, it's not always a guarantee, though the train operators told us the system was designed with input from disabled passenger groups and had improved customer satisfaction. Baroness Tanni Grey-Thompson has 11 Paralympic gold medals, but that doesn't mean she gets special treatment when she's travelling.
I live in the northeast of England but work in London, so use the train most weeks to commute, and I've often have been left on. The most recent one, I was left on a train at midnight. Nobody came to get me off. At that time of night, then there was no staff, so I ended up having to get out of my chair, sit on the floor, which is not a kind of terribly pleasant place to sit. throw my chair off the train and then crawl off. And I'm OK because I can do that, but there's an awful lot of people who can't do that.
This former wheelchair racer is leading the fight to improve Britain's transport network.
I want lots and lots of disabled people out there, in jobs, you know, in work, having a social life, and the key to making that better is making public transport better for everybody. For me, it's about giving disabled people the same right of access as everyone else.
Tomorrow, Tanni Grey-Thompson will demand change. She's the face of the campaign group A to B for All. They want a new regulator who will oversee better training of transport staff. And they're demanding a centralised register of complaint, which can be used in decisions about whether to renew or end rail franchises.
What of the situation in London, where the world's eyes will be focused during the Olympics and Paralympics? These campaigners are on their way to a demonstration at City Hall.
We want to make sure that there are improvements like more step-free access to stations, that the buses work properly.
Tanni Grey-Thompson is on the board of the capital's transport provider TfL and says they're a beacon for the rest of the country. All London buses are wheelchair accessible, and that's the main way disabled public transport users navigate the city. But it's often not the fastest way. That would be the London Underground. So how do they fare there? Penny Pepper is a London-based writer and poet and a regular public transport user.
It's always full of incident, excitement and adventure.
She mainly uses the bus to get around town, even turning her trips into verse.
On the bus, bouncy bus, dirty, bumpy, horrendy bus. Another journey, ramps all broken, access as an empty token.
Penny's experiences might make good material for her comedy shows, but when it comes to getting from A to B on a daily basis, it's harder to see the funny side. We took Penny to try her luck at one of London's flagship underground stations. TfL have spent millions upgrading King's Cross to make it step-free. Thousands of people will pass through here during the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Several expensive lifts transport Penny to the platform for the Piccadilly line that crosses London to Heathrow Airport. She's ready to board. But what's this? A step up?
That's almost left me speechless because that's impossible.
Finding the gap too difficult here, she heads to the Victoria line, which runs to one of London's mainline stations. Transport for London says it's upgraded trains and raised the platform here, and disabled people get on easily. The gap looks small, but Penny is cautious.
I don't know how I'd do with that. I think I'd need to have help because my wheels would catch on that. I feel quite frustrated. It's that feeling of so close yet so far away. It's just, that is something I cannot do.
The tube carries more than 1 billion passengers every year. In a city as big and busy as London, it's the best way to get around. But for wheelchair users, a lot of the city centre is still pretty much out of bounds. 64 of the Underground's 270 stations have lifts or ramps down to the platform. But of those, only 17 are truly step-free, because in most cases you still have to step up to get onto the train. And the majority of accessible stations are on the outskirts of the city. So on a typical journey, say if you want to go from Bank to Baker Street, it's an easy 16 minutes on the tube, but many disabled people have to take 3 buses, with the journey pushing 50 minutes. And that's if you don't get stuck in traffic.
In the last 10 years or so, we've made huge improvements. 10 years ago, we had around about 29 stations that were step-free. We're now at 64. That will move up to 66 before the Olympics. So lots done, but we've still more to go.
We did have a promise a number of years ago that 1/3 of stations in London would be made step-free. Unfortunately, that promise has been ripped up.
At their demonstration aimed at London's mayor, Transport for All demand that pledge to make 1/3 of tube stations step-free be reinstated. Many here have stories, though none quite as dramatic as the man who wasn't met as he should have been by staff at Oxford Street tube station. He pressed the wrong button to call for assistance because he can't see.
So there were 2 or 3 different buttons, and I didn't know which one to press. Then surprisingly, the next minute I'm hearing an announcement saying all people leave the station immediately. So what it meant was that I actually pressed a 5 activation.
So you'd activated the evacuation drill instead of asking for assistance?
Evacuated the whole station, and the station supervisor came up to me and said, "Did you know what did you press?" I said, "I can't see, I don't know what I'm pressing."
With tens of thousands of disabled travellers expected to head to London for the Olympics and Paralympics this summer, Britain's transport network will be tested as never before. Promises have been made and broken in the past. The Games are an opportunity to change the lives of disabled travellers for good. They say it mustn't be squandered.
And Katie is with me now, and I suppose what you found making this film is that you have just scratched the surface.
Well, you're right, and this is just the first in a series of reports that we're going to do about No Go Britain. We felt it was the right time, not just because the Paralympics and Olympics are coming to Britain in the summer, but also because this is a real time of change for disabled people. They're being told their benefits are being cut, they're being told they need to get out to work, and clearly, in order to get to work, many of them need a good public transport system, and at the moment they say that isn't the case. But you're right, we are just scratching the surface. We've spoken to lots of people who've told us the most horrific things, but we want to know more, and that's where viewers come in. We really would like to hear from anybody with a view on this. We've got a Facebook page called which is No Go Britain. If you look that up, we've also got a YouTube channel on which people can upload their videos of, you know, terrible or great journeys they have. But what we're looking to put together is a series of reports over the next weeks and months where we look at people's suggestions, people's ideas, people's stories, and then at some point we will be putting them to transport bosses and indeed policymakers to see whether things can change.
Especially outside London, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Transport for London, you saw in that report, you know, they're held up often as a beacon, although clearly some people have complaints about their service on particular things like the tube and indeed on buses. But on the whole, yes, we're looking for people outside London and indeed inside London to tell us anything they can, really.
Thanks, Katie. John.